Hi, my name is Jenny Devonshire, and welcome to the Pause2Perform podcast, where we talk about all things relating to wellness, what you should take a pause for in your day to optimize your mental and physical health and perform at your peak. Hi, welcome to the Pause2Perform podcast with me, Jenny Devonshire. So this week I'm joined by Milana Malešev, and she is an accomplished organisational learning strategist and currently championing resilient leadership. She is also the founder of Learning Makeover, a company that helps organisations rethink their approach to learning. So welcome to the podcast, Milana.
Thank you very much.
So I thought we could just start off the podcast. You could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your journey and why you founded the Learning Makeover.
Well, okay. So I'm a psychologist. My background is in psychology. And I started my career in PwC, and I worked there as a consultant for some 14 years. And I worked on solving the client's problems based on psychology and psychological insights. So I worked on really many diverse projects, especially in the first part of my career, because I was working a lot. And I was covering things like talent assessment and talent development, employee engagement, but also parts of reward management, such as salary surveys, job evaluation, and also human capital benchmarking and measurement, etc. So quite a lot of things, very exciting period in my career. Later on, I focused more on learning and development, part of HR world. So my focus there was really to cover all the elements within the learning and development cycle. So from really understanding the needs of people that need to learn something and to change their behavior in some way, then to define the outcomes and define the programs that will achieve these outcomes, deliver the programs, and also do the evaluation of the program. So the entire cycle in learning and development. And this is something that I'm still, this is the part that I fell in love with, yes. So this learning and development part. Also, one of my assignments within PwC was tutoring on CAPD qualification programs. And I'm still involved in this assignment. So over the last 8 years, I tutored around 300 HR professionals, HR directors, and HR managers from 20 countries, 20 plus countries, mostly from Europe. And this tutoring in this program brought a really changing shift and in my understanding of learning and development and how the programs should look like, because I had very experienced groups to work with. So I realized that my role there was not to be the person who transferred the knowledge and information, but somebody who facilitates the learning. So there are many elements of the learning that happens there. Some of the elements are coming from the program, the slides, the materials that we are using. Some of them are coming from me and my own experience and the examples that I'm sharing with the group. But much of the learning also came from group sharing their experience. And this part was really amazing because they learned a lot. And also they had to do their self-study in order to pass the exams. So that was another piece of puzzle. So I understood actually that we should be more focused on understanding what are the different pieces of puzzles in learning and how we could arrange them to make the learning as effective as possible for the participants. So this is something that was my major insight from CAPD tutoring on their programs. And what I did actually, I started my PhD studies before that, and I focused on informal learning in the workplace. And this is what I was really interested in, to really find out how people spontaneously learn in their jobs, because we are only small portion of their time some formal learning events, one-off learning events, but people are learning constantly, and they're really changing very rapidly. Particularly, I saw this in PwC because you have a very dynamic work context, and you have really high workload and so many things that you need to deal with. So you are really progressing very fast. So you're learning as you're doing your job. So my focus was to understand this. So how do we learn spontaneously in the jobs? And a lot of these insights, again, enriched my previous experience, and it really inspired me to start Learning Makeover as a company that would help organizations rethink their approach to learning, because I still believe that we are very much traditionally focused on designing learning events, one-off learning events, but there are so many other pieces and other elements of learning that we could actually use to stimulate this learning.
Yeah, you mentioned about like the sort of the pieces of the puzzle. So obviously, lots of people, they learn in different ways. And I was funny actually. One of my clients has started a year-long course in horticulture, just out of interest. And he was saying when he's in the first kind of lectures, the people running the course actually asked people how they learn. So they're becoming more aware that there's not just one way of learning. I think it's more about for them to be aware of the different learning, rather than saying that they could obviously cater for everything. But with like, the pieces of the puzzle, is it that those pieces of the puzzle are different for different people?
Yes, and it will be different. And we learn in different ways, and we learn from different people. A style of one tutor or one role model could suit me better than maybe somebody else's. I will get an insight from one person, but I will not get the same insight from the other, even though they're speaking actually the same thing. So they're talking about the same thing. So definitely we learn in so many ways, and it's really personal.
And I think it was on one of your LinkedIn posts when I was saying about one of my geography teachers was really good at storytelling. He made everything into a story, and you would remember it, because when you were in your exam or what have you, you would remember the story, and it was just the perfect way for me for learning.
Yes, this is amazing how much we learn through stories. For example, I created an e-learning animated stress management e-learning, and it consists of 15 short lectures, very short, 3 to 5 minutes long, and each of them is focused on one theoretical principle of stress. And I used a lot of stories. So for each principle, there was a brief explanation of the principle, and then the real example, a vivid story that showcased how this principle lives in practice. And what I see, for example, when I do the live follow-ups on this e-learning, so people do the e-learning as a pre-course work, and then we do the follow-up sessions to really discuss how these concepts can be applied in their everyday practice, I realized that they don't remember the concepts, but they remember the stories. So every now and then somebody will say, this story about this person. So they're remembering the ideas through stories, and that was really amazing. So absolutely, incredible skill to have.
It's funny you mentioned about theories, because I did an MSc in sports psychology just about a year ago, but it was very much theory based. And now I'm doing my sport and exercise psychology training. It's more about applying those theories. And like I think last week we were covering sort of behavior change taxonomies. And now it's coming alive. I'm understanding why the theories are important, but also how that links to the things that we're doing with people. So it's nice. So it's interesting that you kind of said that about, using the principles, but making it into something a bit more applicable for the people.
Yes. And because I really realized, even though, for example, you can talk to people, you can explain the concepts and you can give some examples and discuss the examples. Still, it's amazing how people it will not be easy at all to make the link to what happens to them, for example, and for their specific situation. So what I like to do really is then to start with their own examples. So give me your issues that you're facing in your job, and then we will discuss how we can apply these principles, because this is another very important insight from me, that from the theoretical concept through the examples that we provide, and then to the real application and to real behavior change that a person needs to do, there is a long way, and they need a lot of support to this. It's not easy. It may sound easy for us if we're experts in the topic that we are teaching, but for some, the newbie, it's not easy at all. So we really need to spend a lot of time in working in really practical, specific examples and issues they have to help them apply what they learn. And this is exactly what you mentioned now. So how it starts to live in the practice, how it's connected to the real world experience that you have.
Yeah, exactly. And so you worked with sort of HR directors and managers from various different countries. And so what are some of the universal principles of HR management that you've found to be effective across diverse contexts?
Well, I would say that again, another very important insight for me from working with a lot of people from very different organizational contexts is that really only few principles will be universal. And these will be very abstract one. Okay, so you want to involve people in decision making. You don't want to impose to people how they should do their work. So consulting people when making decisions about that will affect them. This is something. This would be a kind of universal principle. But I was amazed how different are the organizations and how different are the organizational contexts. And some of the things that are in HR buzzwords, something that is latest fashion or something that we all talk about, there are no really one size fits all solutions. HR really needs to understand well the business, so understand what the business is struggling with, what are the goals and aspiration of the business, and then think from the perspective of being the expert in human behavior. So I am the expert in human behavior. I know our people, I know our employees, I know their skills, I know their motivations, I know their frustrations and the culture. So how can I help the organization achieve the goals people-wise? So taking into consideration the people that we have in the organization, what do we need to do? And then really crafting the solutions that will be very, very specific to the company and to the people that work for the company. And these solutions will be completely different in different organizational contexts. What I've seen, so when we had these group discussions, you can see that what works in some companies will not work at all. It will be a disaster in some other companies. So really taking all the principles in HR exactly like that, like the principles, like the very wide guidelines, and then trying to engineer the process that will work in this particular environment with these particular people that you have. So this is my greatest insight, how few of HR principles are really universally effective in the companies. So this is
I guess that kind of applies to a lot of things. I was thinking sort of like with health and
Absolutely.
well-being, like one size
Absolutely.
fits all just doesn't work for, and we're all so different in physically as well as sort of emotionally, how we process information, how everything, all our experience. So saying this is how to do it, it just doesn't work. It's not helpful.
Yes, because yes, we're exactly like that. Yeah, and now in this era of digitalization, we have so many resources and uh, so many tools that we could support this kind of personalization in all different areas of life and work. So yes, definitely it is to make it as customized as possible to fit the needs of the recipient. Absolutely like that.
Yeah. So you have a degree in psychology and you also have a PhD in psychology. What made you interested in studying psychology in the first place? And you kind of mentioned it before, but what was a little bit, if you could share a little bit more detail about the focus of your PhD, that would be great.
Yes. So regarding the interest in psychology, I don't know. I've been probably amazed with human behavior and why people behave in certain ways. So I love to observe people and to figure out why they behave the way they behave. That was one thing, and also trying to understand and trying to help people see things differently and do things differently in order to really lead a more fulfilling and more satisfied life. So this is something that was that is my personal motivation, and it has always been. So this kind of caring for other people and helping them use the knowledge of psychology to make their lives better. So this is regarding the psychology in general, and regarding the PhD in psychology. I mentioned that I was really again intrigued to understand how people learn spontaneously and how we, who are learning and development professionals, could fit our solutions into their spontaneous way of learning. So that was my idea, and I made the connection of learning and also social psychology and understanding social identities in people, and this created quite a lot of insights. What I did actually, I interviewed people that are professionals and do the work in professional service industry. So I had a series of interviews with them in 2 points of time. So I wanted to understand really how they learn, how they progress in their roles in the company. So that was the method that I used. And what are some key insights that I had? So three main points were that, first of all, learning is not a one-off, it's a continuous process. So that is the first one. The second one is learning is not an individual thing, it's a very social thing. And this is another one that is important. And the third one is that we learn, especially when we are in the company, in the work setting, we learn with an intention to become somebody. We have a role that we aspire to, or maybe the role that we are actually in, but we want to become a person that is 100% fit for the role. Otherwise, we would feel as an imposter. And this is a strong motivation for learning. So maybe I could start from that one. This is a strong motivation for learning. For example, there was one woman that I talked to, that I interviewed during my PhD research, and she told me, no, she was an auditor, and she told me, I had a meeting with a client and the national bank, and she was there to mediate between the national bank and the client. So she was that was her role. And she had this burden because she worked for a company that has a high reputation. So she had this kind of pressure to really be the best in her role. And she told me, I know a lot of things, but for these specific things, there were some guidelines that there was a guidebook that was 1,000 pages long. So of course, I don't know, I can't know everything in every little details, but I spent nights and nights going through this and doing the skimming through the text to make sure that when I go to this meeting, I am up for this role. So I am the one who is I am the person who I need to be at this meeting, and I need to be an auditor from a very reputable organization. So I need to really show, and I really need to behave in that manner. So that was the motivation. Nobody forced her to go and learn and spend nights and work overtime, or nobody assigned her a specific course that she needs to complete. That was her own her own motivation and her own desire, because she was very psychologically invested in her professional role. And this is professional role. I'm an auditor who works for this really huge and great company. So I need to be really, I need to make sure that I behave and I know everything that fits within this role. So I don't want to get into the situation that they say, no, she's not that one, or no, she's not behaving in a way that we would expect from an auditor from this company. So that was, for me, that was amazing. And people learn because we want to be somebody. When we are invested, psychologically invested in a professional identity, we will really try hard and do everything that we need to learn to be able to perform this role really proficiently. So this is something that was the major insight. And what I don't like to hear, and I hear it a lot when the HR professionals are talking, they say our people are not motivated for learning, and they don't want to learn, or we don't know how to motivate them to learn. And my take on this is, really, people learn, and they learn every day, but they learn what they believe is important for them to become who they want to become. So I believe for HR professionals, it is important to understand what is their motivation, what is the role, what are the obstacles, what they need to do to be able to actually bridge that gap to become who they want to become. And if you give them the resources to do that, they will be thankful, and you will not have the problem of imposing learning to them or motivating them for learning. They are already motivated. So that was really, that is, for example, the first thing that was really important for me. And this metaphor of learning is becoming. We learn to become somebody. That is something that has a really strong influence on me and how I now perceive organizational learning.
I guess that's why school is really difficult, isn't it? Because
Yes.
I guess as you progress and you start to choose your subject, and because I know that I worked a lot harder as I progressed, as I did sort of A levels and then university. Yes. But when you're being told you have to learn this for this exam, it's very difficult because you're not motivated.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And still, we can also have some kind of identities during the school. For example, if you are somebody who is a high achiever, a great student, excellent student, I was one of them. For me, I was learning to really maintain this identity of being an excellent student. And sometimes I was not, and many times I was not intrinsically interested in the subject. But I didn't want to get into the territory of somebody asks me something and I don't know the answer because it is not who I am. I am somebody who is an excellent student and I should know that. So that was my motivation because I had this identity. And on the other side, you can have people, and this is really a problem. And I see, for example, my son is 12 years old, and I see some of his friends that are struggling, that are not so self-confident in learning because they did not achieve the success in learning from the start of their schooling, and they begin to adopt the identity of a failure or of somebody who is not bright enough or a bad student. And then they live up to this identity. And even though they could do better, they don't, because it's now the part of who they are, and they act according to this image. And for me, this is really a problem, and these kids really need support and need help to change their self-image, and then to really get the motivation to get better.
Yeah, because it kind of it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? If you're labeled as something. And
yes,
me of with weight loss, when people, if they're like sort of quite overweight and they lose a lot of weight, because they still have the identity of someone who is overweight, they often go back and put it on again because they haven't worked on their identity. So it comes up in every area. It's really fascinating.
Yes, I can imagine that. I can imagine that if you don't work on their identity, that they would, they would come back. Yeah, I would expect this. Yes, because this is about change. This is about personal change. It can be within the corporate background or the corporate context in which I work, but it can be also when working with changing the habits of people, such as working out and well-being and whatever. Absolutely applicable, because this is who we are. We tend to behave aligned to our identity, our core identity. So if we want to change, we need to change the identity as well.
I think it was, I can't remember whose work it is, one of the people who studies habits. I can't remember which one because there's a few books. They were saying that if you want to create a healthy habit, make that your identity. So like, I am someone who looks after my health, or I am someone who exercises, or anything like that. Just like to change that in order to sort of stick to a new healthier habit of whoever you want to be.
Yes. And here is also, you need to change this, but also I guess you would also see the obstacles about how immediate environment reacts to this person, because they see this person the old way. So they see the identity that was prior to this change. And this is also another problem, because if this person does not have the support from their immediate environment, it could be again difficult to sustain the change. Because if I'm now saying, I'm different, I've changed, but everybody around me acts as if I'm the old one and expects me to be the old me, then it will require a lot of strength from me to make the change and to actually impose this change to my immediate environment as well. So this is the social part that you have, because you need. It's not only about you to say I'm different, but you need your immediate environment to validate this change, and this can be difficult.
Yeah.
And we need to take this into account when we are helping people change.
Yeah, you mentioned environment then. Is there an optimal environment for learning, or is it, as with sort of learning how people learn, is it sort of individual for each person?
Yes, I believe that yes, it is always the good environment is the environment that can help you, that gives you the permission to make mistakes. So it's easier to change and to learn within the environment which is not perfectionist in their expectations, and so when the environment is open to mistakes and sees mistakes as a way to learn, then it's easier to learn and to develop within these environments. And also, for example, for me, it was interesting to see the differences between, even within the same organization, when I work with my clients, you have some departments that have less psychological safety and some departments with more psychological safety. So, for example, in the former ones, people would be really reluctant to ask questions, and they would think a lot before they ask a question because they don't want to sound stupid, and they would do the self-research before they ask a question because they want to make the question as smart as possible, because they fear the consequences and they fear how other people would react to their question. And in some other departments within the same company, it was much more open. And for example, one person that I talked to told me, we ask a lot of questions, and this is because our managers and our director are very curious, and they ask a lot of questions, and they always ask. When we go to the clients, they ask million questions to the clients. They ask us, even if this person is a director, he will ask me, even though I'm a new joiner, and he will ask me and be genuinely interested in what I have to say. And I see that they learn something new. They're genuinely curious. So within these types of environment, it's much easier to change. It's much easier for you to learn and grow, because this environment is supportive to learning, because learning and trying out new things will mean that sometimes we will make mistakes, and that so nobody is making a big deal out of these mistakes, or at least they make sure in which areas you're allowed to experiment and in which areas you're not allowed, but you're clear, and there is an understanding that experimentation and making mistakes are okay. So I would say that these kind of environments are the ones that are really the best for learning, and people really grow quite quickly.
Mistakes are a really good way of learning, as long as you do learn from them. But I mean, I think I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying they had some big launch or something or other, and the assistant sent out a text a day earlier and lost them lots of money, and it was a big, kind of had a big impact. But then they were really worried that they were going to get fired. And the person said, "Why would I?" He said, "Will you ever make that mistake again?" And they said, "No." And of course, it was an expensive mistake, but now you'll never make that same mistake again. So that has paid for your learning, and it's such a good way of thinking about it, because
amazing.
Learn a big lesson, never do it again, and and also be very loyal.
Yes, absolutely, yes. So yes, two benefits in one.
Exactly.
Yeah. We paid for this lesson. It was very expensive. Why would we'll let you go now?
So you also mentioned in the PhD that learning isn't a one-off event. Could you just go into a little bit more detail about that?
Yes, so it's not a one-off event, because we are applying our knowledge, and we're applying our implicit theories about how things work in our how things work. So as long as they work, we can continue and we don't learn much. But as soon as we hit an obstacle, so something is not working and it used to work, so my approach is not working in this particular instance, then I need to make a step back and then to rethink my approach, to challenge my assumptions, and to experiment and try something new. So I could ask for advice. I could watch some role models to see how they behave, what they do. I could read a book. I could listen to a podcast. So many different things that will inspire me to change the approach, and then I will change the approach and I will be better. So as the learning happens, so every day, with every single issue and every single challenge we have, we grow stronger and we grow our, let's say, internal system, our knowledge system gets more and more elaborated. We build a model that is more fit to the complexity of the real world. So in that sense, it is really continuous. And what we give now from the organizational perspective, what we should give our people is to give them the resources when they hit the obstacles, so they have the good resources to look into and then change their approach. So we should be there and support them, give them what they need to change and fine-tune the approach to continue to deliver the results. So that is one thing. And another thing which is quite important one is that learning is also a social thing. It's not an individual thing. So for example, it's not only about learning from other people and asking for advice. It is important, but it's not only the social part. It's not only about that, but it's really understanding what is within this specific context, if we are in the organization, what are the common ways that we do things. So for example, if I'm a newly promoted manager and I have some ideas how I should work with my team, and it worked quite well, but now I have a new joiner, and this new joiner is a bit different and he does not respond well to my style. So I need to figure out the way how to approach this. Maybe this person is more fragile. Maybe this person needs more support. So I try and I do that. So I give a little bit more support to really help this person get into the role and do the task that he's expected to do. And then when I speak to my peers, because this is what we do, when we have the issue, when we have the challenge, we speak with our people, and you talk to people who are similar to you, so who are your people, who behave and have the similar values to you. So you will check, I have this person, so this was the issue, I did it in this way, my approach is this. What do you think? Do you think it was too much? Was it too much caring for this person? What did I give enough, or maybe it was too much? What do you think? What is yours? So you want to check how other people see this, your behavior, and here comes the situation where you get this social element, because somebody might say, this is not the way that you should do. You should really be careful about this approach because you don't want to babysit your team members. And you will hear some specific ways that companies, some specific sentences that companies have in their vocabulary. One of them might be, we don't want to babysit. You can be accused of babysitting. So you learn quite quickly from the feedback that you get from your boss, from your peers, what is socially acceptable behavior and what is not. Even though it is one way to approach the situation, but within this context, this is a no-no. Maybe when you change the organization, maybe some other organization will be much more supportive and much more caring, and they will support this kind of behavior. But here it's not what we do, it's we within this company. So you learn, actually, even though there are multiple ways that you can approach the problem, you learn that some are off limits within this environment, within this organizational culture, and this is what you learn. And for this particular reason, I believe that when we do the learning within the organization, it is very important to make it as practical as possible on very specific examples, and if it's possible, to get people who are well respected from the company. So maybe somebody from senior management to participate in these kind of sessions, because they can actually give a very good guidance on what is acceptable here and what is not. And this is what I can, for example, I can see the obstacle of me being a psychologist getting into different companies. I don't know the specificities of each and every single companies. And I'm not sure whether what I suggest to be done is the way that would be welcome in the company. So I always like to either learn quite a lot about the culture. So I make sure that what I discuss is very aligned with the culture, or even better, to bring somebody in to partner with me and to work with me, to be there for Q&As, who will actually transcend and send a message. What is the best way that to approach this problem from our company's perspective? So what works here? So in that sense, it's learning is very social, and it will be, again, one size doesn't fit all. You can have some very abstract psychological principles that you can apply how people behave, but you need to really make it very context specific in order to work for these people in their environment. Otherwise, they might get in trouble for your advice if they follow your advice without double checking their culture.
Sounds really interesting. Well, so on top of all of that, you've also developed a stress management e-learning program. How does that differ from other stress management courses that are available?
Well, my idea was really to make it fit for busy professionals. So to make micro lessons, 3 to 5 minutes long, and that each of these lessons is self-standing. So it is independent from each other. So you are presented with the concept, you're presented with the explanation, and then given a specific example and specific story how this principle works in practice. So it is fit for the busy schedule of busy professionals. So that's one thing. And another thing, it's completely animated. And I found that animation really helps people understand the concepts and also retain the concept. And what I saw, for example, if I come back to a certain concept at a later point, so at my lesson number 15, I'm mentioning something that I mentioned in the first lesson, bringing back the same picture, so the same visual presentation, really helps people remember the concept. So that is something that works quite well. It is also fun and easy to watch, and it shortens the consumption time. So you can convey more messages in a shorter amount of time when you use the animation than you would be able otherwise.
Yeah, I remember I did a training in acceptance commitment therapy, and they used animation. It was about the passengers on the bus, and it was about, how thoughts can go and all this kind of stuff. I don't think I'll ever forget that, because it's so sort of like that just simple animation makes, like it's so easy to retain, and it just brings it alive, doesn't it? So I guess it ties in with that sort of storytelling thing. It becomes more a kind of a story. Yeah.
Yes, I think the thing is that you really use different approaches, different media. So you are using visuals, you are using the storytelling, you're using some bullet points or whatever. So there is something for everybody, and everybody will find something that will strike them, and they will get the information. Yeah, but it's quite powerful, this animation part and this visual part, really. Even though I always considered myself to be more of a verbal person. I was not able to visualize many things, but still, even for me, it's much better, and it's very helpful and supports learning.
And so obviously you're very passionate about how people learn. Is there any advice that you can give to individuals and organizations to support learning that you haven't already covered?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the bottom line for the organizations is that really they need to understand how people feel about the role that they need to perform. And if somebody is not performing, is not showing, manifesting the behaviors that we expect in this particular role, we need to check whether it is about lack of skills, so they need to upskill, or maybe it's about acceptance of the role, so that also might be the case. So for example, again, when I'm talking about, I worked a lot on leadership and management development programs, so this is why I mentioned so much the managers and the challenges they face. So for example, when managers become managers, it's very often that now they're required to network more, to build visibility, because they're now exposed to much wider number of stakeholders. So they need to work on their visibility, they need to network, because things get done once you know people, and it will be much easier to do some things when you know people, when people trust you, etc., etc. So it's more important in a managerial role. And what I see is it's not difficult to organize a session about how to network. It's not difficult to organize a session how to build your internal brand or how to build your internal visibility. It's easy, but you will still see that people are not applying that, and they're not applying that because they actively resist this. And many of them will say, I'm not that kind of person. I am a hardworking person. I do my work well, and I expect that people should see that. I'm not the one who will do the self-marketing. I'm not going to brag about my achievement. It's so disgusting. This is not who I am. And this is the real obstacle for behavioral change. So if you want to make the change, giving them a training how to network or build visibility will not be enough. But you need to work with them and to honestly understand the problems that they see. Because what I realized, people, the main question is, when it comes to personal development within the company, is how do I change but stay true to myself? And in this particular example, they feel that if they change their behavior, they will not be true to themselves. So instead of giving them the training, I would recommend giving them 1 or 2 coaching sessions to really work on their understanding of what this means to do the networking, what it means to build internal visibility, what are the meanings they attach to it, and do these meaning necessarily need to be so negative. So this is something. It's not only about skills, but it's also about accepting the role that you're asked to perform. So I think this is the major things for the organization and for the individuals to really, again, understand that there are so many different sources of learning. What I can hear is that people say, my company does not invest enough in me, and I don't learn enough. So what I would like people to see, that there are so many different ways that we can learn, and with all the digital technology that we have, so many things are out there. You can use them for free or really for very cheap, and be able to upgrade yourself and develop yourself in the areas that you would like to, even though your company is not organizing the training for you. So it's not only about the training.
Yeah, we're going back to like the manager thing. I was just thinking also for managers, you're going from being on the same level as your colleagues to then being promoted to be a manager. So then there's always that thing about, when you're a manager, everyone kind of talks badly about the manager because they're their boss. There's that kind of thing. So you've got to change your identity from. Yes. And also, if you're someone, if you identify as I get on with everyone likes me, and then changing it to like a role where you have to have a kind of a little bit of separation because you have to keep it professional, don't you? Like I know people who are bosses and things, and say they don't go to the pub with their sort of subordinates just because they need to keep that kind of level of professionalism so that it stays like that. So I guess that would be another element that would be a bit challenging.
Yes, and everybody will have different types of challenges. Yes, and this is the really major one. Yes, especially for people that likes to be liked by people. So this can be especially this can be a really huge pain point for them. So they need to figure out a way to balance this professional and personal with their team members. So this is.
So moving on slightly to well-being, I guess. So many high achievers in the corporate sector, in particular, they sacrifice their health and happiness for their business success. So, what are some of the common stresses or challenges you have observed among the people in the workplace from your experience?
And this is a really timely question because actually I was doing the summary of all the things that people told me over the last maybe a year or so in the Jamboards. What are the common stressors? What are the most frequent stressors in their workplace? So this is I would say there are a lot of those that are regarding the time and the workload. So short deadlines. So it's workload, last minute change of priorities, last minute decisions that they need to implement, overlapping projects, a lot of meetings, interruptions, etc. So these are some regarding the time and workload. And you also have quite a lot of them that are related to difficult conversations and confronting with people and getting into conflicts with people. So having rude clients and customers, having rude colleagues or unresponsive colleagues, too demanding bosses or underperforming team members. So everything that requires you to stand up and confront and try to resolve the issue with somebody else, and there is kind of misunderstanding or even different interest in that situation. So these are the most common that I've observed. I believe that majority is there, and again there are some in the groups of things that daily annoyances. So you can have the traffic, you lose a lot of time, or you have technology crashing, or you have some procedures which are you don't find them, you find them quite irrational, that actually prevents you from doing your job. So many these annoyances that you can actually not control. So these are beyond your control, so you need to live with them. Yeah. So I would say these three groups of stressors, this is how I categorize them.
Kind of reminds me of, well, it makes you think of self-determination theory, because you've got like kind of the autonomy, like things out of your control, and then the relatedness.
Yes. Interesting. Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely in line with that.
And what are kind of the things that the sort of habits and behaviors you would encourage high achievers to adopt so they can improve their well-being and their work-life balance and cope with these stresses?
Well, first of all, really making sure that they are physically okay. So since stress is actually the series of psychological changes that we experience within our bodies, we need to make sure that we have enough activities that will initiate the psychological renewal. And this is what Dr. Richard Boyatzis and Annie McKee, they were saying. This is their term, psychological renewal. And these are the activities that actually bring us back to the state of physiological equilibrium. If we were out of this equilibrium while we were stressed out, we need to do something to come back to this equilibrium. And some of the ways that we could do it is really engaging in doing the things that we love, listening to our favorite songs, watching our favorite movies, spending time with people we love. Also another bucket of ways that we could approach that is mindfulness, practicing mindfulness. This is very important. Also being physically active, exercising means that we stay fit and we stay resilient, physically resilient to the stress. This is absolutely something which is important and which is really baseline, because we are not only our minds, we are the whole persons with our body and minds. So taking care of the body, very, very important. And another part are more psychological uh, ways to approach the situation, since we say that the stress is the exposure to the situations that we estimate as harmful, threatening, or challenging. So this is an estimate, and every perception and every estimation is a subjective one. So we can take a look at our perception. This is a threat to me, or this is harmful for me. We could come back to the perception and challenge it, whether it is really that bad as we feel it is. So, for example, if I have the link, my entire week has been a disaster, only bad things are happening. So it's really nothing positive that goes on. Yeah, absolutely worth considering. Is it really that bad? Didn't you have any positive situation, any positive encounter, any positive feel during this week? Because you must have, and you just didn't notice them, and you let them go unnoticed. And in that sense, so this kind of challenging your view of the situation, that it's extremely negative, that can be quite helpful in relieving the stress in the first place. So lessening this stimulus for stress.
Yeah, that's why I like sort of gratitude and things like that, because you're just
Yes.
refocus, bringing your awareness to the positive. And I think it's all about appraisal, isn't it? How you appraise the situation, changing that focus to the positive rather than the negative. Because once you start focusing the negative, that can be very easy just to just go down that road where it's like it's all bad, it's all terrible.
Yes. And gratitude, if you practice it regularly, can really help you rewire, really to be more sensitive, to recognize all the nice things that happen to you. And that's why it's an amazing tool.
Yeah, getting much more popular these days.
Yes. Luckily.
So you are obviously very busy. So you are balancing sort of your demanding career, your academic pursuits, and your passion for helping others. Is there any advice that you'd like to give to individuals who want to achieve a similar balance and fulfillment in their lives?
Well, I think that this is something that I learned the hard way, and that you need to really be kind to yourself, and you really need to be realistic in your expectations from yourself, first of all, because if you're doing things, if you want to be successful in all areas of your life at the same time, simultaneously, it can be quite difficult. So if you're focusing, I believe if you have a huge focus on something that you need to be done, that needs to be done right now, maybe it's something that is happening within your family, you need to understand that and forgive yourself for not being so perfect in all other areas. It might affect your work, it might affect your social lives, but that's the fact, and that's the only reality. You cannot have it all. So you need to actually change where you will focus your attention, and be kind to yourself if you're not so brilliant in all other areas.
Yeah, I heard something really good the other day. It says, choose the area that you want, you're happy to be mediocre. And I was like, yeah, because we're not. We want to be like strive in every area, but it's just not possible. This whole, you can have it all. You can't. And it's, I mean, you just need to decide what's the most important and where you're willing to be mediocre. And I thought that's such a good way of looking at it.
Yes, amazing. Yes, definitely. Yes. If you pick these areas, then really be fine with that. That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, later, it's fine.
Yes. Yes, I agree 100%.
Well, it's been great chatting to you. I've got one more question. So the final question is, what's one thing that you recommend people take a pause for in their day to improve their mental and physical health and optimize their performance?
Well, I believe it's really about making a pause. It's really about taking a break, and then everybody should choose the thing that they like most. Somebody will listen to music, somebody will go for a walk, somebody will want to connect to their friends and talk with them. So it's really quite individual, but making the break is really, really necessary, because investing in this break is amazing. It can really boost your performance and help you feel satisfied and fulfilled. It is really important. You don't want to end up working without non-stop working without any breaks, and then make a break once and only when you're completely exhausted, because then it's too late, you feel awful. And then again, if you're interested in achieving the results, it will take a lot more time to then come back to work and be able to work with full productivity. So small breaks are really amazing for feeling better and also for performing better.
Yeah, I did hear something about it from a psychologist, and they were saying, if you take breaks every a few hours, just 10 minutes, just lie on the floor, just no stimulation or what have you, then that's the best way. Because if you wait, like you say, if you do like a longer break later on, you'll never get back to sort of full capacity. Whereas if you take breaks throughout the day and recharge, and then like you say, you get a lot more done in the long term.
Yes, it's not easy to remember that once you are under the pressure of deadlines or of the workload, but still it's so very, very important and helpful.
Well, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you, and I'm sure the listeners will have found that's so interesting, got some great insights. If people want to find you or work with you, what's the best channels that they can use?
I think it's my LinkedIn profile. So yes, I believe this is the best way to find me.
Perfect. Well, I will link to that in the show notes. But thank you again for joining me, and hopefully have you on again soon. I'm sure we just scratched the surface, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much for having me.
You've been listening to the Pause2Perform podcast with me, Jenny Devonshire. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you could rate, review and subscribe. This helps other people find it, and hopefully I can help more people to improve their mental and physical health and optimize their performance.